Okay, welcome everyone. For the next 2 hours, I'm going to be going through the Strategic Manager's Toolbox. And when I had the opportunity to do a 2-hour lecture, I asked myself, well, what do you need? And I like the SurveyMonkey lectures. When we do all those surveys, I started those when I started teaching the blockchain course. Because it was the first time blockchain was ever taught at Harvard, and we weren't really sure what you needed. And instead of trying to guess, which I did, and I guessed wrong, I went to SurveyMonkey and said, what do you want? And what I find is that some people want to have more class participation. Other classes don't want to hear from their cohorts. They paid money to hear the instructors. And it goes back and forth. It depends on the class. So some of the feedback that we got in the SurveyMonkey was, I want specific tools on how to manage companies. So I've had 6 startups. I had my first one at the age of 16. I retired when I was 36 with my second startup. I've had 4 since then, which were more like passion startups, fun ones that I just enjoyed doing. And I'm going to share with you some techniques that you can use for yourself, whether or not you have a large company or a small company. You can adjust the lens on what I teach you today from whether or not you're doing a startup or you're going to be a CEO of a large corporation. All you have to do is change the scale. So Helena is going to start off with a poll. So if you put up the grid, what I'm going to ask you, our overview is going to be teaching you how to strategically manage yourself, other people, and the organization. And the techniques that I show you, each technique can be plugged and played from one of these 3. They're not going to be separate. They're actually going to be the same. So now we're going to start with a poll. Raise your hand if you ever worry about things. Okay. This is my way of saying, okay, who actually participates, who's awake, who likes to raise their hand? So now raise your hand again if you feel that you worry too much. Now turn around, not yet, turn around and just look at each other. Now raise your other hand if you are a self-declared perfectionist. They usually go together. Okay, so hands down. Now I want you to think about all the times all the times you have ever worried about anything, from birth all the way up to today. Just think of every time you've ever worried about anything. So just kind of grab that all into your short-term memory. And now I'm going to ask you for a super rough statistic. What percentage of the time has what you've worried about actually happened? So just think about that. Every time I've worried about something, it's happened. That would be 100% of the time. 9 times out of 10, that would be 90%. So just think of that percentage. This is just going to be an informal study. I do this for all my classes. And I'll give you the results of, we're going to do your results, but I'll also share with you what has happened in other classes as well. So just think of this rough statistic, totally unscientific. Raise your hand if 100% of the time, every time you've worried about something, that bad thing happened. 100% of the time it happened. That's going to be a 0. Now 90% of the time, 9 times out of 10, that bad thing happened. That's going to be a 0. 80% of the time, 8 times out of 10, none. 7 times out of 10, 70% of the time, whatever you worry about happened. Okay? 60%. 50. Okay, we have 2 people. Half the time what you worry about it actually happened. I'm sorry. 40% of the time. 30. Okay. That's for 30. 20% of the time. How many is that? 10. And 10% of the time. What do we get? Okay. These results are very similar to what I typically get from every class. That you start to get clusters around 30% all the way down to 10. So again, it's informal, but every single time I've done this, and this is about the 15th time that I've done this, I always tend to get the same results. That between 10 and 30% of the time, what you worry about actually does happen. 70% of the time, it doesn't. So this is fear, and we all have it. And someone shared this with me a few years ago, false expectation appearing real. And as managers, if you operate out of fear, you are not operating optimally. Creativity shuts down with fear. Memory, biologically, will shut down with fear. That's what freezing on an exam is. You ever studied so much for an exam that when the question comes, you're like, oh my God, I totally blanked on that. That's why torture doesn't work. You could actually not even know your own name if you were so stressed out and scared during torture because you do not have access to memory. So fear is not going to be your friend when you have way too much of it. You're not going to manage other people very well out of fear. You're certainly not going to manage an organization very well out of fear. But we all get scared. I get scared, you get scared, because we're human beings. We need fear to survive. It's part of our survival mechanism. You actually want to be afraid. If you're not afraid of anything, you're going to walk in the middle of traffic and you won't be surviving very long. So fear is actually okay. It's too much fear that does not serve you or the people that you are managing or your organization. So what I would encourage you to do is be really honest with yourself. Why am I doing what I'm about to do? Am I scared? You don't have to tell anybody about it, but if you feel that you're afraid, which is that little rumble at the top of the belly, maybe you get some constriction in the throat, remember this statistic, that there's a 70% chance that what you're worried about is not going to happen. Yes?
Philosophically, let me play devil's advocate. So, when you say worry, I feel like worry and fear are different in a way. Like, fear is debilitating, like you're saying, but worry is maybe, well, if I'm worried this is going to happen, so then you prepare, you study for the exam, that's why it doesn't happen. And that's why maybe 70% of the time it doesn't. You're worried, so you take actions to make sure that it doesn't happen, you know?
To your point, raise your hand if you use fear as a motivator. Yeah, I'm one of those people. I'm so afraid of failing, I do really well. People who have anxiety disorders, I used to have one of those. It's not great to be inside my head, but we make really good managers. We make really good assistants. We're great people to work with. We meet our deadlines. We do everything perfectly. Everyone's incredibly happy with us, except our own minds. So worry is a light version of fear. So I encourage you just to be aware of it. I'm not telling you to get rid of it, but be aware of when your fear is so intense that you are not serving yourself or serving others. And just simply be aware of it and take a look at the statistic. Also, fear can only happen with inward thinking. Think about it. I'm afraid. I'm nervous. I'm going to mess up. That's actually somewhat self-centered. What can get rid of that fear is it's very hard to have a panic attack with outward thinking. If I'm thinking about you and what's good for the organization and what's good for my kid and what's good for you sitting here in the second row, it's really hard for me to be panicked about myself. So if you find yourself in too much fear that's debilitating, you think you're not going to be making good decisions, start to think about the people that you're managing, start to think about the organization and who needs you, and think of yourself being in service to them. And that will help to basically distract you from your fear. So now we're going to talk for a second about emotional intelligence, and I'm curious if I could take 3 people's hands up. What do you think emotional intelligence is? Take a crack at the definition of it. In the back.
And there are 2 parts to it. One is about yourself and about your environment, the people you work with, talk to. So having a self-awareness about you and what you can do, what you can't do, and how you interact with others, those two pieces work.
Great, and also, if you raise your hand really high, Melena's going to be tracking class participation for you. And regarding class participation, we want you to do well. We're on your side. We want to make sure that everyone gets the participation that they want. We understand that some people don't like it, some people are a little bit shy. We totally get it, and we're sympathetic to you. If you're concerned about your participation grade to date, shoot Gundeep an email. We'll let you know how you're doing. If you're a little concerned about it, come to me and we'll make sure that you get the participation grade that you're looking for. We do not want it to be a source of anxiety for you. Rich.
Early childhood development is an interesting place to practice emotional intelligence skill building. We're doing with my 3-year-old right now. Instead of reward and punish, we're asking how he feels when he has an outburst or an issue.
Okay, so 2 more on what you think the definition of emotional intelligence is. Yes, sir.
So it's being able to recognize other people, how they're going to react to certain situations, and being able to adapt the way you respond to how they respond, basically. Instead of like having an umbrella type response, personalize it more based upon how certain people think or feel or react to situations.
Great. And another thing that we're going to talk about just a little bit is agile and lean management. We're always reiterating. When you raise your hand, please raise your name card so that Melanie can see you easily so that you get your card. Okay?
It's okay,
trying
no,
to make your job really easy.
I can find out.
Yeah, Anna.
So about emotional intelligence, I think it's very interesting. You just demonstrated it when you were saying, if you're worried about your participation, you know, feel comfortable. It's really, it's a form of compassion. Just put yourself in the shoes of the person opposite.
Excellent. So we're going to keep going because we have 2 hours, but you're all going to get a chance to chat because we're going to have a few exercises. But I see that hands just so much enthusiasm.
Well, I'm a physician, so to me, it's the opposite of autism. You know, if you're autistic, you can't read people, read the room, read people's gestures with their temperature, so to speak. If you have emotional intelligence, you can walk into a room, figure out what's going on, feel the vibe, making somebody happy, sad.
That's cool, taking the temperature of a room. That's an interesting word. I like that. Thank you. So according to some researchers who are really good at this is what they say. Recognizing, understanding, and managing your own emotions and influencing that of others. So we're just going to use this as a basic guideline. It's okay to have a differing opinion or you have a different shade of that. That's okay. So these are some of the benefits that you can get from emotional intelligence. I'm also going to share with you, I'm a pitch coach for startups, and when you do your presentations tomorrow, be mindful that people read 10 times faster than you can talk. So what you never want to do is this. Emotional intelligence can increase leadership ability, increase team performance, and improve decision making. Because no one's really that fascinated with the back of my head. You've also already read the slide. So you can just take a pause and let people read your text. Also, try not to have too much text in your slides because it distracts from you. So this is just a little mini commercial for your own presentations. The more images you have, the better you'll do with your PowerPoints. Now take a look at this. These are going to be, for people who aren't really sure exactly what does emotional intelligence look like, on the left is the behavior of managers who are low on emotional intelligence, and on the right is going to be the polar opposite. So I'd like to hear from 3 people. Pick one behavior on the left side. Just give us maybe a little 30-second background of what happened. And then I'm going to ask you a question. And it's an emotional question. So we want you to be honest. So if you're okay with sharing your emotions, then please raise your hand. Krista.
So you want me to describe a situation in which someone was aggressive towards me?
Yes.
So at work, in my field, it's very fast-paced. This client needs this, that client needs that, and so there's often a lot of delegating in an aggressive way, and that's not a way that I perceive or respond to well. I'm more of a self-motivator, self-starter, so if you bark a demand at me, offended than motivated.
Okay, so someone was aggressive to you, and how would you physically describe that aggression, body language-wise? What were they doing?
Their stress is being received in that, so they're rigid, kind of leaning forward, standing straight, that sort of physical behavior.
And how was the tone of voice?
Harsh, quick.
Harsh. And emotionally, how did you feel?
Felt offended and kind of confused.
Offended and confused. And what happened to your motivation?
Down.
Down. Motivation down. Okay, thank you. Second, Andrew.
So I had an issue recently where I was trying to make the line between aggressive and assertive. I wanted to firmly communicate a point, but at the same time I had to do so over email.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So the challenge was that the property, a sign appeared on the front door of our condo saying, "Water about to be shut off." We're not responsible for paying the water bill. The property manager is. Our elevator had also broken the previous week with me in it. And the fire department had to come get me out because the fire door button didn't work. I had to call them on the cell phone. So when I sent an email, the challenge was trying to say, these are the problems, how are we going to work to solve them? Without sounding like, these are the problems, do it, or I'll get on the condo board and fire your butt.
Yeah, this is interesting, and I'll do another little regression here on email. So here are some statistics on communication. 55% of your communication is your body language. 38 is your tone of voice. 7 is your words. So when you send an email, only 7% of your message is getting through. 93% of your message, of your communication, is being missed. Which is why people usually start fights on emails, because people misinterpret it, there's resentments, you get fights. So I would encourage you, if you have something that's sensitive, don't do it in an email. And if you do start a fight with email, or someone really annoys you with an email, stop. And then go up one more level of communication and get on the phone so that you can get tone of voice. If it is super important, like the wedding's off, stop and see them in person. But be mindful, if you have a sensitive issue, only 7% of your message is going to get through. And I have found I never hit the send button out of anger. Because I got really tired of apologizing to people 24 hours later. I was wrong. Like, I thought I was so right. I was so right. And then it's like, oh, man, sorry about that. Yeah, I just don't like apologizing, so I try not to do those stupid things. So I just never send an email out of anger. Anything sensitive, I just avoid that form of communication. Yes, sir? So something that was different. Not aggressive and not assertive, but something on the left-hand side. Tell us that story.
Let me think now that maybe hard to please.
Hard to please.
So just recently, in the last week and a half or so, one of my rental properties, I had to, the tenants let the grass die, which is their responsibility to fill some water. So I had to cut down several trees, which was an expense. I resawed it and put in an irrigation system. So I'm already out several $1,000s. And which I could have charged to them apart from just the irrigation system. But instead, I split the sod, so they took half and I took half, just to be nice and accommodating. And what I wanted to do after that was I wanted them to re-sign the lease so that they would not, so it was very clear that they had to water it X amount of times a day and everything. So I put it in a nice email, and I sent it to them, and then they refused to sign the lease saying, well, we don't have to. And legally, they don't have to. And so I wanted to respond via email saying, well, now I'm going to enforce the lease email more strictly. And so I composed at least 3 emails that I did not send because it's all legally discoverable. So here's me worrying, because I'm already thinking at the end of the lease, if they think I'm retaliating or whatever, then if it gives it to arbitration or for legal reasons, then I don't want to go down that path. And so even though I wrote those emails several times, I had to delete them because I did not want to put anything in writing. I had to pull back, but I was angry for several hours, pretty much that entire day. And and in my mind is still racing, like, what if they do this, then I have to counter this way, then if they do it. So I'm going to all these counterfactual things. And most likely, hopefully nothing's going to happen. They're going to be happy, I'm going to be happy. But again, I was trying to be assertive and accommodating, whereas they were, they were seeing it from their side. So I don't know what else that falls under, but it was emotional to say the least.
Very nice job on self-regulation. So Don's self-regulated. He was angry. He ripped off 3 emails and hit the send button because he knew where that was going to go down the road. The anger was still there, but that's part of emotional intelligence, is realizing if you do these behaviors on the left-hand side, you're probably going to pay for it somewhere down the road, whether it's decreased motivation or anger or someone suing you. But anything on the left-hand side is a really good way to create a resentment in another person. And when they get a chance to get you, they will. So just be mindful, when you're feeling like behaving like this, stop. Take a look at the opposite side and say, could I potentially change my behavior? Because really, at the end of the day, you just want to get what you want. And if you know that the left-hand side is not going to do that, try to take a look at the right-hand side and see, could I experiment with something on the right-hand side that will get me what I want? So, last person.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes, question.
Can you expand on how spontaneity is high emotional intelligence?
Not right now, because with spontaneity, what that one can do is that you're not really going to be thinking things through, and I really want to share with you with emotional intelligence, think through 4, 5, 6 steps ahead. What are the consequences of your behavior right now? So being spontaneous can be really good for brainstorming and for good positive things, but if you're trying to manage people and you want to spontaneously, off the cuff, go with the gut reaction and there's something negative in there, it could have bad repercussions for you. So I would encourage you, spontaneity can be really good in its place, but it could be, the risk-reward ratio is not great if you're trying to manage other people that can take it the wrong way. So, last story, T.
So I see the common denominator for all of this is communication skills, but I just want to harp on the poor listener part, is that, and I don't think this is a reason to cause resentment. I think this is a matter of how words are transmitted when you're trying to decode something that was conveyed, but we all have different interpretations for the exact same instructions or the exact same information as being delivered to us. And that can come from, cultural barriers, reasons, or environmentally we have different upbringings, or just in a different state of mind wherever we are as we're receiving that information. For some people, if you can say, we actually just tested this in Washington about the poor listening aspect, and so I thought it was really interesting from an organizational development aspect, in that you can just tell folks, all right, walk into a room, here's the instruction, but people perceive the instruction and interpret it in a different way. So you got like 20 different results. And that's something that I'm not sure you can really control. And I don't know if I would necessarily label it as low emotional intelligence, because you think that you're being clear, but it's not intent, it's perception, it's how it's being received and decoded from the other side.
Yes, and so you ask for feedback, you ask for clarification. For example, I was working in China since May. I moved back a couple weeks ago. And I had this really interesting boss named Vivian. She's one of the wealthiest people in China. She's a billionaire. She owns the largest Porsche dealership in China. She's also a yacht broker. She started a preschool and she wanted help with me creating curriculum. So Vivian's really nice, and her English is pretty good, and she's really shy about letting you know that it's not perfect. And she does this really funny thing with her tone of voice. So after I started working there, a 10-hour day, just in the beginning, so I'm trying to get used to it. 9 o'clock at night, I'm going home after I've been there since 7 o'clock in the morning, and I go, "Good night, Vivian." "Oh, you're leaving?" What's with the attitude? I've been here like 12 hours. So instead of me copying a resentment, I was like, oh, okay. I'm American. I speak 3 words of Chinese. She's Chinese. She speaks some English. So instead, I said, is there anything else I can do before I leave? She goes, no, thanks for staying so long. And I was like, okay, cultural thing, translation thing, tone of voice thing, got it. I took it the wrong way, but what I did is I asked for clarification because I got upset. So I just asked for clarification, and it's really okay to ask for clarification. Regarding listening, T makes a really good point. If you want people to get along with you, listen to them more. The optimal selling ratio of listening to talking is 70% listening, 30% talking. The more you talk, the more you like me, which is really weird. The more you talk, the more you like me because, oh my God, Michael really cares about me. Well, he's listening. He's asking all these questions. If I want to diffuse you, I listen to you. I repeat back what your complaint was in the same way that you shared it with me. And it diffuses you. Anthony, I would be... So you're upset that you got bumped off your flight that you reserved 3 months before. You're going to be late for this residency. You're going to get kicked out of school. Your life is going to end as you know it. I would be upset too. I absolutely agree with you. See the Teflon that I'm creating? It's what I'm trying to do is be empathetic with him and become his ally. Anthony, I would love to help you because I would be angry too. Would you give me an opportunity to see what I can do for you on Southwest? And now all of a sudden I'm his ally. So by listening and repeating back to people in a respectful way, that is a good way of diffusing people. But when in doubt, if you're upset, ask for clarification, especially with email and text. Just hop on the phone. So these are some characteristics of high EQ leaders. They let you talk to them. People are happier. There's more confidence. But this is all a bit fuzzy, isn't it? You have a question, yes? It's in your printout. Oh, your slides have been posted on Canvas. So you have PowerPoints as well. So you can actually manipulate those. And feel free to use these PowerPoints and bring them back to your organization and use them as training tools if you would like. Raise your hand if you actually manage people right now. Jesus. That's like all of you. Okay. These are actually training tools for yourself, but it's also for other people. So feel free to use these as you wish, and you'll get the PowerPoints, not the PDFs. So if you want to play around with the graphics and stuff, please do. So thank you for that. So this is one thing that we're going to be taking a look at. Using emotional intelligence for competitive advantage. The reason I brought this up is that I think that there's an opportunity here. Because everyone's always going for a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. But where is there some really low-hanging fruit? Well, take a look at this for people who really don't like the fuzziness of emotional intelligence. Let's take a look at some real numbers. Most people with high EQ, better performers, job performance, make more money. So the people who are just really focused on money in the room, it's actually something that can make you more money. And your stock price goes up as well. 80% of your success in life and work. What's interesting in living in China is they seem to be like the United States 30 years ago, where you start to see this poor country starting to see incredible wealth, like unlimited wealth. I've never seen so many Maybachs in my life. Lamborghinis, I would see about 20 Maybachs a day, about 10 Lamborghinis. I had an Audi with a chauffeur. They were just like bribing me. They wanted the guy from the West. Anyone that wants to become an English teacher in China, you're highly respected. You are more respected as an educator and a Westerner in China than you are in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's really interesting if you get an opportunity to go there. It's almost like America before capitalism really blew up. Everyone seems to have this interesting opportunity, but they are so hyper-focused on money, it's nauseating. Every single thing is a brand, and it's ridiculous. And I look at these people, very low on emotional intelligence. They treat employees like possessions. I used to complain that Vivian treated me worse than her Burberry's handbag. A lot of the parents treat their children like possessions as well. Very wealthy people who just fob the kid off onto the nanny. So I'm sitting here going, okay, you know what's going to happen? In 10 years after you've bought every color Lamborghini in existence, you're going to scratch your head and be like, why am I not satisfied? Why do I feel empty? And China's not the kind of culture where you can talk about that. Gee, I'm not really feeling fulfilled. It's not, they don't do that. And I'm thinking, wow, what a recipe for disappointment. They're working so hard, and they're just going to be disappointed because they're really not going for a sense of wholeness. And it was easy as an outsider for me to see this, and I just basically kept my mouth shut because I'm not going to change a culture of over 1 billion people. But it was interesting watching them see what happens to people when they get opportunity. And it was interesting watching people move up the food chain. And it was really kind of cool. It was really kind of cool seeing people be successful and see the excitement that they had. And it really made me appreciate being in a country that had freedom, where you can pretty much write your own ticket and do whatever you want. So it was really a very interesting place if you actually do get an opportunity to go there. So here's some more statistics. Managers, when they hire you, they want to make sure that you've got some emotional intelligence. Again, you're making more money. Now, when I owned my companies, I am a self-declared lousy manager. I'm a perfectionist. I'm aggressive. All I care about is my customers and making sure they're happy, and I was a money manager. And from 1994 to 2004, we were the #1 stock market timer in the world. So we predicted every stock market crash in 10 years. We never had a losing quarter. And when I had an employee that made an error on a client account, and they were like, they won't notice, I would be down their throat like crazy because I knew this was people's life savings. But you, on the other hand, you're like, he's paying me 60 grand a year, whatever. This guy's rich. He'll probably rip somebody off. They didn't really like the clients. And I would be way too aggressive. But I realized when I did have employees, when I was managing them, I was way too hard about it because I cared too much. So I got an office manager, and I realized I can't do this. I'm no good at it. I was creating too much resentment. But one thing I did learn, and I have heard it from other people, and John mentioned this about babysitting adults, I felt like I was babysitting a bunch of grown-ups. What I have found in and out is that if you have only one person in your organization that has a nasty attitude, it just spreads like wildfire. It's like this emotional cancer, and I strongly believe that these people should be removed immediately because they ruin the good ones. And a lot of people say, well, let me try to fix them and da-da-da. Some people just kind of like being miserable. Some people like being the complainer. Oh, God, it's Monday. Oh, I can't wait till Friday. You'll start to notice who these people are. And one thing I did learn as a manager is it's really important to maintain a really good culture. And if someone doesn't fit into that culture, it acts like a cancer cell and it grows. So make sure that that culture is something that you protect and cultivate. And having emotional intelligence is really important. So here's some more numbers. Employee retention is a big deal. It is super expensive to train people, and it is also incredibly dangerous to fire people. I remember whenever I had to fire someone, which fortunately wasn't that often, I had to call the employment attorney and make sure I wasn't going to get sued. Even if I didn't do anything wrong. If you have a lot of money, you're a target. And it's just not great to be on that side of the equation. You have to do documentation and fire for cause. So that top right is just a nightmare to try to fire people, which means really make sure that you hire the right people in the beginning. And one thing that Whole Foods does that I've actually seen that works really well in one of my other businesses, I had the opportunity to be into a lot of corporations. Most people hate where they work. Can't stand it. There are only 2 companies I've ever visited where they seem really happy, and that's Apple and Whole Foods. Those are the 2 places where they just seem pretty like, you know, hey, how you doing? Happy to be here. Whole Foods has a really interesting hiring practice. Does anyone know how Whole Foods hires people? Yes, sir.
It's my understanding that after you make it through the initial interview process, you go to work with your future colleagues for I think it's a day or 2, and they want to see if you can mesh culturally, if you get along with people, and if you're able to fit in with that environment.
Yeah, your coworkers hire you. And guess how people get hired? Why do people get hired? What's the big one reason? Yeah, I like you. I like you. It's a marriage. Do I want to spend a third of my life with Donna? I just want to get along with her. I don't really care if she doesn't work right. I just kind of want to get along with her. It's do I like you? And you typically get thin slice. Anyone know what thin slicing is? It's a word for public speaking. It's a really nice way of saying racial profiling. When you walk up in front of an audience, people are going to do what's called thin slicing, meaning they take a thin slice of who you truly are, and they make all these judgments about you. Oh, look at his shoes. Oh, look at his watch. Why is he wearing that shirt? Look at his haircut. And you make all these assumptions about people. The same thing happens in an interview. That the first minute that you're in that interview, a lot of the decisions are already made. And it's based on, do I like Hannah or not? Do I feel the vibe with Sunil? Do I kind of want him to be here? What about Q? Yeah, okay, he's smiling. I like smiling people. Okay, he's in. That's fine. Okay, you've got some humor over there. I love humor. Okay, she's in. Good storyteller. I really appreciate that. So a lot of people will basically be making these very, very quick judgments in the beginning, and being liked is a part of it. And a lot of managers who are in HR, they basically say that you hire for attitude, and you can teach people the skills. And I have found that to be true. You cannot change someone's attitude. Whatever it is, it's pretty much going to be there. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to testify to my experience with the day in the field hiring practice. We changed from doing interviews with folks, or multiple interviews, to one behavioral interview and then one day in the field. And the hiring that we have done since then has been 100% spot on. We do a 365 review afterwards. I don't even sit down with them. They go out into the field with the people that they'll be working with, and I just rely on their feedback primarily. I would say even more so than the behavioral interview that I do with them personally. And it has absolutely changed the way that we have been able to approach our
I love that one. Almost every job that I wanted to get, I got, and I wanted to do something different. So what I basically would do is I would call up people and say, hey, I want to work for you. We don't have a position. That's okay. I'll work for you for free for a week. And if you like me, you can create a position. That's how I became a millionaire in my 20s. I was a researcher for Gerald Appel. He'd invented stock market timing. He was a client of mine when I was a commodity broker. My boss was being fired because she lost people so much money during the first Iran-Iraq war. They were on the wrong side of oil and the Swiss franc. So she lost people so much money, she got ditched. I was her broker's assistant. Jerry was a client of mine with a $50,000 account, very small. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to move back to Maryland into my bedroom where I grew up and mow the lawn and take out the trash. I was no way I'm going backwards. So I went to Jerry and I begged him for a job. He's like, I don't have a position. And I said, why don't you let me come work for you for free for a week? If you like it, great. If not, I took my shot. He liked me. Why? He had a son who he wanted to take over the business, and his name was Martin. Martin had no interest in money management. He went to Harvard Medical School to become an anesthesiologist, and Jerry was pissed. Who am I going to give the company to? It wasn't until years later that I realized that I was the proxy child. I was the son that cared about what Jerry was doing. That's why he hired me. It was an emotional hire. And I just hung on every word he said. And then 4 years later, I started my own firm. Yes, sir?
Yeah, so I totally agree with everything you're saying, just having hired like 50 people in the last couple of years, that you have to have that match. your point with thin slicing and everything, how do you prevent ending up just being in a situation where you've got discrimination? Everybody hires all white people, or everybody hires all men, or everybody hires all women because they hire, they thin slice people and maybe they just tend to slant towards one way.
I'm also the instructor for E5420, Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and I teach people how to build teams. So part of the thing is that you have to make a startup and you have to build a team in the class. And so the best way to build a team is through a triangle. It looks like this. And basically what you're looking for in a team is similar values, such as I'm on time or I'm late. I'm a perfectionist or I'm a procrastinator. It doesn't really matter. So you're looking for similar values. And what you're looking for also are what I call rainbow strengths. So you want people to have different strengths from yourself. So if someone actually is different racially or gender or age or geographically, I actually want that because you want that variety in an organization. But you do want to have the similar value system. So I would say if someone walked into my office and I had to hire them and they were different, I would actually prefer that because you want to have that. You want to have that mix because everyone wants innovation, everyone wants change, everyone wants creativity. You're not going to get it if you hire yourself. And most people are tribal. So if you're an accountant, and I'm an accountant, I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to totally get along. Well, we have similar values and similar strengths, but we're not going to be great together. We're not going to really add any spark. I actually want a graphic designer. Rita.
Yeah, and I think it's very similar for Procter & Gamble's PDP principles, which is basically principles, values, and purpose of life. And they get this whole checklist. There used to be a brand manager there. And you interview people, and often you don't even see the name of the person you're going to interview. And all you're gonna focus on if they measure up to that PDP checklist. Because if they are so, that means that their characters, their norms, their values, their purposes in work and in life is aligned with everybody else to get higher profit energy. So therefore, they create a group of people who are really, really alike. Beside the personalities and whatnot, it's really easy to work together because you already start off on the same basis based on that PVP.
Thank you. And also, Rita was in our entrepreneurship class, 2 years ago?
2 years ago, and I testified for that because if somebody wants to start their own businesses, that class actually enabled me to do mine, and I am today a startup entrepreneur because of that class, and that's what I do full time.
And she also has a product. After the semester ends, I do a TV show called Startup TV Boston that you get 3 times in Boston, and then it goes on YouTube. You use that URL link to raise money. Rita was on the show, and Rita's product is very interesting. You can talk to her later about it. But she got it into Walmart, and now she's getting it to Jet.com. And at the break, I can tell you about getting on the Taobao, which is much bigger than Amazon. So yeah, if you want to learn about entrepreneurship and startups, Rita would actually be good to chat with about that. So we're just going to keep on motoring along here. So there are a bunch of slides to get through. So here are some more statistics to take a peek at. Again, there's real money here. There are real metrics. But the interesting part is take a look at this slide. So you've already seen, okay, there's money, there's metrics, great. The higher up the corporate ladder, the more emotional intelligence you see. Oh, that makes sense if you think that, right? But look at the last box. How can that be true? Yes, Rebecca.
Because when the CEO's in the room, everyone's sucked up the CEO, so it's tough for them to know exactly who's what and what they're doing. People are generally not who they are with the rest of the company when they're around the CEO.
Okay. Why do you think the C-suite typically has low emotional intelligence? David.
They need to set the direction, so regardless of whether or not people want to do it, they have the understanding of what's strategically best for the company.
Interesting. Yes, sir.
Yes, they do. They set the culture of the organization, the vision, and direction, and expect everybody to follow.
So why is it okay that they don't have high emotional intelligence? Margot.
They are somewhat detached from the rest of the organization. They're like on top. It's like the top 1%, and people don't feel comfortable speaking up. They don't feel comfortable disagreeing because then you get the Persian messenger situation where, So they're not even aware of
they're hired for the metrics. They're not hired to hand out hugs. They're hired to make money and increase the stock price and all that good stuff. But that's why they don't have high emotional intelligence. But raise your hand if you think that you see an opportunity with this information. Hannah?
If they're hired for the metrics, and we can see from data that emotional intelligence provides better KPIs, that is where the opportunity lies.
Yes. Imagine if you want to be a really cool CEO and you improve your emotional intelligence. Steve?
It's potentially also a problem because they're hired by the board, and the board has a different focus frequently than, organizational culture or the emotional intelligence that the CEO has towards the rest of the organization if they are only hiring metrics. But I'd be interested to know if you think that there's a difference between sort of CEOs of nonprofits and their hiring versus CEOs of for-profits, where the metrics are different and not focused on stock market returns or other metrics, but more focused on the nonprofit issue.
I would argue that on nonprofits, and it's not my expertise, nonprofits are just a tax status. It's still a business. Someone's got to pay for that electric bill. And I think there's an argument that they get put under an even harder lens, because I want to make sure that that dollar I give to you is something where I can see where I'm making a benefit. So they want a return on their dollars as well. And I see all the hands, but everyone's going to get a chance here. What we want to take a peek at is emotionally intelligent leaders could be the differentiator of becoming better CEOs. And this is what I want to focus on, that whether you're doing a startup or whether you're going to become a CEO, I think the low-hanging fruit in really being incredibly successful is developing your emotional intelligence. And there are ways that we can do it. So if you take a look at this box, there are basically 4 areas that they split out. You want to be self-aware. You want to be able to manage yourself, just like Don didn't rip off that nasty email to those people that didn't pay for the chop down trees. And again, to Don's point, with social awareness, you want to be able to take the temperature of the room. How are people feeling? And then you want to be able to influence your relationships. And we're going to be going through the persuasion equation at the end of this lecture. And I also do consulting, and I use the persuasion equation to win a $200 million job last year. There's actually a little skyscraper going up in Boston at the seaport. It's because I helped my client win that job based on the persuasion equation. And it's a building that is going to be built for millennials working for an IoT firm. So I'll explain to you how that works, and you'll also, if we have time, go through a practice exercise. Now, these are all some of the top books in the space on improving your emotional intelligence. So I would encourage you to pick one that resonates with you. Now, I don't have Brené Brown up here, but she has a couple of books. There's Daring Greatly and The Gifts of Imperfection. If you want to do a case study for the webinars, which are already full, but I'm opening up. If you want to do one, I'll make space for you. I would encourage you to take one of these books and you can do a case study on it, which would be like a little 15-minute, just teach me the book. Take 15 minutes and be the Cliff Notes on it. Just teach it to me. So I'd encourage you to take one of these. Daniel Pink, he's a lot of fun, and Brené Brown, she's another one. Yeah, so you can all take your pick. These are the tops. These are the best sellers, and you're going to have your own personal preference. But I would encourage you to take one and make a case study for the group. Now, raise your hand if you saw the TED Talk that I had suggested. Oh, that's most of you. Thank you. Okay. Now, raise your hand if you're like, why did you do that? That was weird. Raise your hand if that was weird. Not that many. Okay. I did it on purpose because I wanted to be vulnerable as well. I thought, you know what? I know I'm supposed to be teaching strategic management, but I just came back from China and I just saw so many people wasting their lives, going after the golden carrot, and I think that a lot of people waste a lot of their time. A third of your life is spent sleeping. A third of your life is doing stuff and living, and the other third is working. And if your work time is miserable, and you don't like it, you are literally wasting your life. And I'm hoping that some of the things in this TED Talk make you sit back and say, hey, I might not be going the direction I like, and maybe this is going to tell me what's up and why I'm doing that. So I hope this helps you, but to bring this back on point, you're not going to be able to change your organization with innovation and creativity unless there is some sort of vulnerability. So let's take an example. I'm 52 years old, and I pee my pants now. There isn't a diaper big enough for me because they're all for infants. I'm the CEO of my corporation, and I leave a puddle in a chair, and I'm mortified by that. I don't think I'm alone. Demographically, the world's getting older. 25% of Japan is older. America is getting older. I think there's a market for an adult-sized diaper for people like me who pee their pants. Now that is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. And the only way that you're going to raise your hand and say, this is a really big business, is to be vulnerable and to talk about it. Now, when I retired at the age of 36, I thought that was a good idea. Bad idea. I got depressed, I got anxious, I drank too much, smoked a bunch of cigarettes, and when I got depressed and anxious, I was confused, like, why is this happening? All I do is I go around and play and party. Went to the doctor, antidepressants didn't work. 25 different prescriptions didn't work. Out of desperation, I went back to school to study mind body medicine. So I became a yoga teacher. Okay, that helped. Joined a swim team. Okay, that helped. Meditation. Okay, that helped. But I was taking an emotion class at Harvard, and they were talking about this doctor who had mental patients that had schizophrenia, and they were in lockdown for being too violent. He found that when they put them on gluten-free diets, the violence went away. When he put them back on gluten, the violence came up again. And I remember, to Donna's point, I had met a few mothers with autistic kids, and they had just sort of mentioned, my kids go on gluten-free diets, the behavior gets a little more controllable. Not scientific, just sort of observational. I thought, if diet can change violence, and diet can change behavior, could diet affect mood, like depression and anxiety? So I actually started to take a look at a slice of medicine that I never knew existed, called orthomolecular medicine, food for medicinal function. And I found out that there are foods that you can take that will depress you, such as caffeine, sugar, alcohol, flour, processed foods, basically. And then there are foods that you can take that will help your mood. So omega-3 is one. Magnesium will calm you down. Magnesium's green. The darker your green vegetable, the more magnesium. Fatty fish with the skin on it, that's where the omega-3 is. That fatty goop that's between the skin and the fish is where the omega-3 is. So I drastically changed my diet. Within 48 hours, I had my last panic attack. That was 10 years ago. I'm fine. And I thought, hey, there's no food companies out there making food for depression and anxiety. And that's what I wanted to do. I made the first food product in the United States for depression and anxiety. And I went to the class that I now teach, the entrepreneurship class, as a student because I was such a procrastinator because I had sat around for so many years drinking and smoking. And I was like, I got this cool idea, but I have so many cool ideas that just, I forget about by morning. And I was like, no, I got to do this one. So I ended up making this company. We got into all Whole Foods. I sold the company out about 5 years ago, and now I teach full-time. Had I not been willing to be vulnerable, I would have never thought, are there other people like me? And most people don't realize that antidepressants don't work for 80% of the people that take them. And almost 100% of the people that take them have a decreased sex drive and gain weight. That's depressing. Yeah, it wasn't like a good thing. But if you can be vulnerable and create a culture where people can talk about this, then you can have innovation. Then you can have change. But people need to feel safe, especially the quiet people and the shy ones. They are the best listeners. They have some of the best ideas because they've been listening the whole time. And if you can make them feel safe and comfortable, they can give you some of the most amazing ideas. Which is why during brainstorming sessions, I always do a thing called yes and. You come up with some lousy idea, and I go, yes, Donna, and let's do another better idea. Yes, and. You don't throw in the negativity. Oh, Jesus, then that's not going to work. You don't do that because it's going to shut people down. So it's really important to create a culture where it's okay to be vulnerable. And what I started to do as a manager is I would ask people's advice. Rita, what do you think I should do? And it is amazing how I could motivate people so quickly by making them feel valued. Hunter, I know I'm your boss, but I need your help with something. Do you have a minute? And all of a sudden, he's really important, and he really wants to help. So it's okay to ask for help. Make sure that it's for real. But I would also do letters of appreciation, little notes, handwritten, not text, handwritten. Don, I really appreciate when, you make something really, really specific. Krista, I really appreciate when you helped me and came in 10 minutes early. I felt really valued and supported. Thank you so much for that. So you make it really specific. And these are great ways to get the culture a little bit better. Hannah.
We just hired a new CMO for our company, and last week we had our first offsite where he brought together the full marketing team, and he gave every single person a handwritten card on his team, and it impressed so many people. It impressed me, and it kind of let him come from a place of equality and vulnerability to a certain extent, which was very effective.
To that point, I had a very hard time asking for help. I grew up in a family where it's basically like, we're fine, we're fine. That's it! Well, this whole idea of like showing people friendship and gratitude, I ended up getting these postcards. Feel free to use this, people love it. They're adult coloring cards in the shape of a postcard. And I kind of like coloring, because I'm a lousy artist, but I like making pretty things. So I would draw this stuff in, and then on the back, because I can't say it to your face, I would be able to write, I really appreciate you. Thanks for being my friend. Really hard to write that. And then a couple days later, after it sits on my desk, I would drop it in the post box. And I went over to a friend's house for dinner a year later, and I saw on the fridge there was this drawing, and I recognized it. I was like, oh, that was my postcard I sent him a year ago. It was so special to him that he put it on his refrigerator. So if you have some challenges with being vulnerable and showing gratitude and letting people know that they're important, it's okay to write it out, and you'll be able to close that delta, but write something out, and then it can be a little bit awkward to drop it in the post office, but people never get handwritten notes. They really appreciate it. No one spends the time on that. So to that point, it's really special to get something that's handwritten because you invested some time in it. So she actually has a couple of other TED Talks which are good. And again, the whole point of that TED Talk was to please be vulnerable because it does show us strength. It does not show, it does feel like weakness coming out, but it does get perceived as strength and courage. And people like it. They certainly don't want to hear you show off. Here's a great way to get people motivated. It's a little bit tough to do as a manager. There's a really, really good TED Talk. If you just Google in TED, Daniel Pink Motivation, it's a 10-minute YouTube that comes up. It was a study that was done in conjunction with MIT and the Federal Reserve. And very briefly, if you do these 3 things for your employees, give them autonomy, they're going to do better because people basically just want to master something. And people want to know that they have a purpose. And it can be really hard as a perfectionist, control freak, micromanager like myself to say, hey Luca, why don't you go, can you set up the coffee thing for the group this morning? And it is so hard for me to be like, no, separate them. Put this coffee here, this coffee over there, then put like the mixings in between because everyone's always like bunched up and bottlenecked. No, I'm not going to do that. You figure it out. I'll let you do your thing. Because if I keep hanging on you, I'm not going to allow you the opportunity to grow. And it is so hard for a control freak like myself to let you screw up on my clients, my dime, my money, and I have to clean up your mess. It's tough. You got to suck it up. People need to feel valued, and that is just simply the price of doing it. Let them do something small. Like if he screws up the coffee, okay, whatever. I might not let you do the PowerPoints, because if those go, then we're really in a mess. But people need to have that autonomy. Stephanie.
Just to add to that, one thing that I found really effective in motivating people is really being their source of confidence and just motivating someone by like, you can do this, you are able to do this, and that is so empowering in my experience that people, like you see it permeating people's behaviors and really abilities by doing that as well.
Can I just add to it? Because I was in, some time ago, it was I was having something to do with, I know nothing, I don't know anything about it. My boss just smiled at me and said, yes, I can learn quickly. And it's this is just still with me, like 10 years after. It's still stuck with me, and I remember this from him. This is how I remember him.
Yes, I was to that point, I'm on the MIT racing team, and we typically don't win because the team is split into the top third are really good sailors, middle third are middle ground, and then the other third is total beginners. So what we do is that you'll teach me one beginner thing, I learn it, and then I teach you next. I teach you as a beginner, and then it's like a mentor-mentee relationship, and we move up the ladder. So I'm an okay sailor. I'm not really great. I'm middle of the road. And it was my job to start teaching people who were total beginners. And we had this one woman from MIT. She was from India, and I was trying to teach her how to wind the line to pull the sheet. And it's got to go this way, not that way, otherwise it's not going to work. And so I'm sort of like, literally sort of like on top of her, because it's a boat, there's not that much room. But physically I was sort of like this on top of her, and she's doing this with me. And I'm like, no, it's the other way, no, the other left. And since I've studied yoga, they do this thing with the breath. And so she starts doing this. I'm pissing her off. She's doing her breathing thing. So I was getting this feedback that, okay, I'm not really helping. So I backed off, and I just let her fumble with it, and she goes, okay, which way do I wrap it around the thing? And I go, let's try one way and see what happens. So she wraps it the wrong way. The thing didn't move. My mouth shut. It's hard. Because the other way, it starts moving. And I'm like, she learned. She learned better without my interference than with my interference. Now, we've been in races before where people do it backwards and the sail goes all over the place. We lose the race. We lose the race. But they learn, because now there's 9 other crew members that are like, thanks. So they learn. So I'd encourage, do something where you can allow people to have their own experience, to get their own mastery, and they will feel valued and they'll learn on their own. It's hard to do. It's hard for me to do, especially if you really care about the organization.
I have a question. Yeah. It's a slightly different sort of context here. So there's this concept of strength-based leadership, right? And if we have a CEO or a manager who is really A-class, world-class in analytics and looking into the market and all that, and is not really good in the emotional side of things, isn't it asking too much from that person to actually be world-class in that and then develop this? Aren't you better off sort of pairing him or her with somebody who has that and let him or her be world-class in what he or she does, rather than sort of trying to make it easier?
You make a good point that it's really hard to change people.
Yeah.
If someone wants to be a better leader and they see value in increasing their own emotional intelligence, only they can decide that they're going to do that. And if you're in an organization, and I've seen so many of them where someone's just like bearing down on you with the metrics, and they think that this is just tree-hugging crap, off the record, they'll get a new job. Seriously, they're not liking you. You're not liking them. You are wasting part of your life. There's a slide in here about purpose of life, and I'm actually pretty serious about it. The older I get, the less I want to waste my time with people that don't enrich my life. And I stopped trying to change people too. That doesn't work either. So if someone is just totally diametrically opposed, that's a different value. And that's just not going to be a good team. You're not good for them, and they're not good for you. And that, again, when I just did a sales management executive ed course here last week, 44 students, after we did our exercise with them, 4 of them decided to quit their job based on the slide that I'm going to be showing you today. It's a slide from Japan called Geeky Guy. So, be prepared. You might have a change coming. So this is something that I use that you can use it for yourself. You can use it for your direct reports. You can also use it for your organization. So it's called SWOT Your Dice and Grow. So now we all know the typical SWOT. Oh, before we go into this, if you want to be a better manager and you're really into it, I was never into it. I'd rather just hire someone who's better at it than me. But if you're really into managing people, I would encourage you to get certification as a coach. I went to Coaches Training Institute in California. I think there's another one that's also a close competitor. I don't have any financial affiliation with them, but it was really, really cool to go through the 6-week training. And it's basically cognitive behavior therapy. You don't get into psychology, you don't get into what happened that your mother did, and locked in the closet, you don't get into that. It's basically, you're at point A, you want to get to point B, what's the shortest distance there? So you really don't get into people's stuff so much as opposed to changing behavior and mindsets and reframing. It's really cool to make yourself a better person. It's also a very diplomatic way to coach people. Because if you start using, one of the things that I learned from it, and I would suggest it all to you, is I have removed 2 words from my vocabulary. Should and need. Andrew, you know what you should do? Defense mechanisms go up. Makes people angry. Oh, Krista, you know what you need? What's you to tell me that? So instead what I've done is I don't use those words anymore because they're offensive. Unsolicited advice is taken as an insult. But a marketing professor here, David Shore, taught me a line. He said that I could borrow and I could share to other people. Stephen, I have a suggestion for your consideration. Now, isn't that nicer? But also, do you notice the dynamic of how I put the power into your position? You get to decide if you want to take that on. It's your decision if you want to change. I'm not sitting here ramming it down your throat. Marco.
Just that I wanted to add to this really quickly. So there are a lot of tips of such behavior and how to treat people, etc. But I would suggest to make sure that you're doing it authentically, because I know people who do it, and I can tell that it was learned somewhere and it's rehearsed even for many, many years. Sometimes people, after 20 years of knowing it, I can tell whether it's you or if you learned it somewhere. And when it comes out and it doesn't seem authentic, it will even be worse than if you just were the a-hole that you are.
And to that point, that's part of self-awareness. I'm self-aware enough to know I don't want to manage people. I don't feel that I'm better than anyone else. And I don't like to command people. I like to be your equal, I want to be your friend. I don't like the hierarchy. That's just how I am. And so I hire someone for that position. And to your point, I probably wouldn't be that good at it because I'm still a control freak and a micromanager. And if I tried to use those gentle words, I really just want to like go right down your throat and be nasty. That's not okay. So I just take myself out of that equation. But if you really think people are cool, if you just love the human race, and you want to empower people and enrich them and use them as these cool things that can help the organization and create culture, if that turns you on, then this would be for you. It's not for me, but just have enough self-awareness to fire yourself, which is what I did. Adam.
Yeah, it's funny how hard it is to change those behaviors. I did the management development program here through the grad school of education last summer, and the word they said never used the word but, right? It always used and. So anytime somebody in the class when we started talking the word but, she'd cut them off and let them finish. Literally the first day, nobody finished their thought. The entire first day. It's just like a crush that everybody uses.
Yeah, negativity, contractions are they're real buzzkills. So I would encourage you to get coaching. It's just fun to do. When I did it, it was about $3,000. It's probably about $5,000 now. It's a really cool self-development thing. It was just a lot of fun to do. Also, get a mentor and be a mentor. You know, getting a mentor is easy enough. The only thing you have to do, ask people who you normally wouldn't think would say yes. Most people self-select out. So most people do not go to them and ask for them to be mentors. So you're probably not gonna, if they say no, that's fine. You're already at no, so there's really no risk as far as I'm concerned. But the cool thing is, the only thing that they need out of the relationship is please listen to them. They're not free consultants where you get to say, they need to see you grow. They need to see you take their advice. So make sure that you get a mentor that you like and respect. Someone that you really do want to listen to. But the really cool thing is, you will be a better person if you mentor someone else. Because now you have to show up. You have to straighten your game. Because they're now looking up to you. And I have found that if you have underperformers in an organization, and you start a mentorship program where you have a mentor and a mentee, having them mentor someone, it's amazing how they rise to the occasion, because they might just be bored. And they might not feel appreciated. And now all of a sudden they're important, and someone's looking up to them. That might be a really quick fix for motivation. Christina?
Just a quick question regarding the certification. Is it only people management, stakeholder management, or also emphasizes the entire program management, dealing with budgets, time?
What I do is I like to take things and twist them and reframe them. So this is basically for life coaching, to be a personal coach for people, but you can also be a career coach with it. But this is really starting out for life coaching, and that's originally what I set out to do, but there wasn't any scale in that. And I also found that when people were procrastinating and they weren't growing, I wasn't being fulfilled as a coach, and I wasn't feeling like I was making an impact. So I've taken the coaching thing and I've switched it over to helping people with their careers and putting it into teaching. But I just think it's a really cool thing to have under your belt. And this is just my personal opinion. So now, what I'm going to ask you to do is just take about 2 or 3 minutes, and I want you to fill out your own personal SWOT. And that's what it means to you. What do you feel your own strengths are? It can be anything. Weightlifter, great manager, great mom or dad. Just put in about 2 for each of these so we can do these quickly. So what do you think your strengths are? And please be honest with opportunities, weaknesses, and threats, especially weaknesses and threats. This is where the vulnerability comes in. So just fill out 2 for each box and look up at me when you're done. This should only take you about a minute. Raise your hand if you're willing to share with the group one of your strengths. We're not going to have you elaborate on it. Just tell us what the strength is. Yes?
Strengths, accountable, help.
Thank you. This one's good. Strength in the back.
Motivation.
Motivation. Thank you. Opportunity. Raise your hand if you're willing to share an opportunity that you have. Yes, sir.
I just really need to improve my communication and be more succinct.
So that's an opportunity for you. Thank you. Hannah.
Being more deliberate.
Being more deliberate. Thank you. What's a weakness? Yes, sir.
Organization.
Organizational. T.
Patience.
Patience. Don.
She just took it, but I'll put hasty.
Hasty. Denise.
Procrastination.
Procrastination. Oh, procrastination. If you're a perfectionist, you might be a procrastinator. Because if we don't do something, we haven't failed. I couldn't figure out, why am I a perfectionist and I'm a procrastinator? What's that about? Oh, I'm afraid of failing. Oh, now it makes sense. Luca, weakness.
I have the same tendency to micromanage.
Micromanage. Weakness.
Too many ideas, too many projects.
Got it. Yes. Weakness.
Asking for help.
Asking for help. Oh, I want to double click on that one. Raise your hand if you have trouble asking for help. Yeah. Ooh. Oh, we hit a button, haven't we? I had a problem asking for help as well until someone said to me, just try it. It felt weak. I didn't really need the help. I was just kind of doing it for an exercise because I was told to do it. until someone told me a story. I'm not a religious person, but this person who told me the story was at their church, and I think they were watching the door, and someone said, "Do you need help?" And he said, no, but he needed help. He was carrying something. And the priest went up to him, priest or whoever he was, and he goes, when you don't let people help you, you don't give them the opportunity to feel good. I thought, oh. Now, raise your hand if you're good at helping people. You like to help people. Okay. So keep your hand up if you feel good when you help people. Yes. So do they.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes both ways.
It goes both ways. So when I ask for help, sometimes I don't really need the help. Who helped me? You helped me bring in the coffee. I could have done it on my own. However, it was inconvenient. There was a half and half, and the two things. I had my backpack, and my initial thought, my initial default, which still comes from childhood, I'm fine. I got this. But as soon as he might like to help me. You know what? I don't want to carry the damn coffee. I've been carrying it since Brookline. Yeah, I need the help. I want the help. And I had to remind myself, he might feel good by doing that. It is still a challenge for me to ask and receive for help. And I have to put in front of my head, this is making you feel good. And that's how I'm still helping you. That's how I do a reframe. So I would encourage you just to try out asking for help. Yes?
So, vulnerability. I'm so bad at it. Sometimes I'm like, okay, don't look them in the eye because they're gonna ask me, do you need help? So I'm like, with my grocery bags, and here comes the neighbor. Don't look her in the eye, because she's gonna want to ask. And I'm like, so bad at it. Like, I don't want help. I'm fine. I can do this. So yeah, I need to practice on that.
I would encourage you to get something small and just ask. If someone says, raise your hand if you're willing to commit to this. The next time someone says, do you need help? You really need the help. You'll say yes. Raise your hand if you're willing to try that. And just allow yourself to feel whatever comes up. It feels bad the first time. I don't like it. But keep doing it, and then it's like, oh, wow. Now sometimes it feels kind of good. When someone says, hey, can I borrow your car? Can you drive me somewhere? Oh, sure, happy to do it. But I'm never called, hey, Tom, can you drive me somewhere? So I still have a problem with it. But keep practicing. We all have room for growth. Anthony.
Yeah, don't you think that now that Lucas knows that you did that just to make it, he's not feeling good anymore?
I'm a work in progress. And I do appreciate the help. Okay, so now we have our SWOTs.
But you really did need the help because it was inconvenient.
It was inconvenient. There were two of them with a half and half, and yeah, but still, I'm just sort of, yeah. I did. Yeah. Cute.
Can you talk a little bit about the opportunity? Isn't that like a strength plus weakness combo thing?
No, that's a potential good thing that you have. Like now I have the opportunity to work for my Chinese clients at the same price remotely in Boston. That's an opportunity. It's a good thing. It's a cool thing. So it could be it's an opportunity for growth. It's a goodie. It's a good one. So the top ones are goodies. The bottom ones are not so great. Okay? So here comes the good stuff. So you can SWOT yourself. If you're willing, you can ask 5 friends to SWOT you as well. This is how other people see you. Now this is going to be used as a management tool right now. That as a manager, you're going to be a manager for Jenny, and then Jenny is going to do her own SWOT. And then you compare the two, and this allows you to have a coaching opportunity. So where you have duplication, you don't have to worry about that. So Jenny and you both feel that there's an opportunity to increase your territory. Okay, that's fine. But what we're actually looking at is opportunities to do some real change. So the manager thinks that Jenny's a good listener. And then Jenny thinks that she's really good at not being pushy, which that's kind of being a good listener. That's being a good listener. She's kind of going a little bit further with that it's not just being a good listener, it's not being pushy. So there might be something there. We both agree that a weakness is that Jenny's not asking for the order. She's a salesperson. She's also saying that she's too shy. She's not talking enough. So what it seems to be is that as the listener, she's being a really good listener. Maybe she's an 8 out of 10. But what if she was a 7 or 6 out of 10? She's still listening, but not as much, but now she's starting to ask for that order. She's doing too much of the listening, and she's not doing anything but talking to people. Hannah?
Well, I think she's misperceiving her strength, right? Because not being pushy is a reframe of not asking for the order. So if she can understand that not being pushy is not the same thing as being a good listener, or it doesn't mean that you're very much not a good listener.
You hit it. That Jenny might be thinking that it's a strength not to ask for the order. She might be thinking, so see how that your strength, let's say that you're Jenny, your strength and I'm the manager is, okay, I got this in the weakness box, and you've got it in the strength box. And this is where the coaching comes in. Hey, you really are a great listener. But guess what? You're doing it so much, and you have a belief that if you don't ask for the order, you're getting some brownie points for not being pushy. And maybe you have the belief that, hey, look, they know I sell this stuff. If they want it, they'll tell me they want to buy it. Well, you're a salesperson. You've got to kind of ask for the order. So what I need to work with you is just to sort of dial it back and get rid of some of the potential shyness or the belief that not asking for the order is actually a good thing. And this is where DICE comes in. So SWOT is a snapshot of where you are. But DICE is something I came up with my consulting clients a few years ago. It's an active SWOT. Look at all the action. These are all action words. You take one thing that you want to work on, let's say not asking for the order. What do I need to decrease, increase, create, or eliminate off of this one issue that is going to move me to a better SWOT? So let's say that Jenny's just not asking for the order. What does she need to decrease? Maybe she needs to decrease the listening a little bit, not too much, because we want that 70-30. That's the optimal sales ratio. Listen 70, talk 30. Maybe she needs to increase the number of times she asks for the order, like maybe once every 30 minutes. Put it into a SMART goal. That's the specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Make it really specific. Jenny, I know this is a challenge for you. I totally get it. We need you to ask for the order every 30 minutes. So if you're sitting with someone for an hour and a half, you need to ask for it 3 times. Take out your watch. And then Jenny can be like, okay, check the box. So it really has to be super specific. What can you create? Perhaps a line, an opening line that will make you feel comfortable about asking for the order. Most people's problem is the opening line. It's not asking for the order. It's how do you sort of start that? Like, raise your hand if you have trouble with difficult conversations. For me, it's the start. I mean, I can have that. Once we're in the difficult, I can do that. But it's the starting part. And so I've had to come up with some opening lines. And usually it starts with physical behavior. I raise my hand and I go, I got a red flag. Can I have permission to have an awkward conversation with you? I actually say that. And it's sort of bumbly and awkward. But people are usually like, yes, because they're curious. But notice I use the word permission. May I have permission to have this awkward conversation with you? And they say yes. And now, I can go for it because I've asked for permission. And that usually allows people to start to have that conversation as the curiosity gets the best of them. Because there could be things like, listen, I love you, but your breath is just like, I keep offering you gum, and you say no. I tried. That can be really, that's difficult. That can be difficult. Also, what do you need to eliminate? Maybe eliminate the belief that if they want to ask for if they want it, they'll ask for it. What if they're just as shy as you? And you're not giving people the opportunity to buy the product. Maybe you're giving the impression that you're not proud of what you do because you don't try to sell it. Maybe you should eliminate some of the things that you're doing. Maybe eliminate some of the misinterpretations that are happening. So this is something you would DICE. I'm just going to pop through these super quick. So again, we want to get something really specific. So for example, this is something I did for myself. This was last spring. I think my strength is I'm a good talker. My opportunity was the speaking deal in China, which happened. One of my weaknesses is I don't listen, which is why I lecture. And one of my threats is I was afraid that my intellectual property would be stolen in China. And so with the listening, this was my dice. And I do it for real. I want to reduce my talking time by 50%. I want to talk less than half in the equation. I want to increase repeating back to you what you said to me so that you feel valued and know that I'm actually listening. And not just like waiting for you to stop so I can come in with my really witty thing and kind of like one up. Did I used to do that? I still want to, but I don't. Well, never mind. Create. I try to create a curiosity. Maybe you've got something you can teach me. A friend of mine, a guy named Frank Esty, he started a department store called Marshall's. And I was best friends with his wife, Evelyn. And Evelyn was great. Frank was rough. And I remember one day he said to me, you know, when I was young, one of my managers said to me, you don't learn when you talk. He walked out of the room. So I was like, oh, God. So that was Frank, but he was right. You don't learn when you talk. And I found that I was talking a lot to impress people. And it doesn't have that effect. You just kind of sound like a jerk. So I realized, oh, I'm being that guy. So let's just stop that and listen more. So dice actually helped me. And then eliminate thinking of something better to say. Like that one-upmanship, because that's something that I would do as well. One of my big challenges was making people feel like I don't trust them or accusing them of bad behavior before they do it. So I was told, oh, you don't want to video record your stuff in China, they're just going to resell it. So I had to have that conversation. How do I make sure that when I'm teaching in China, when I go to China to teach blockchain, how am I not going to end up on being resold somewhere else and I don't get that money? So I had to have that awkward conversation, and that's how I said it, through a translator. So what I did is that I wrote the contract, and I pitched it as a convenience. I made something easy for you. I have written an IP contract that protects both of us, and I've had it translated into Mandarin as well. And I paid for the legal fees. So they saw it as a gift, and that's how I pitched it. I was trying to make it to their advantage. Now this is the grow model. This is a little bit different. This is more of a deeper dive. And this could be the same issue. This is, take a look at your goal. So one of my goals was to listen 70% of the time and talk 30, because that's the ultimate selling ratio. Realistically, where am I? Let's say it's the opposite, 30-70. So what are my obstacles? Typically you do this in private because it starts to get into emotional stuff and belief systems, and people don't want to change. If we don't change, it could threaten our survival. So it's actually pretty serious. So you have to be pretty honest. You know, why do I not want to change? I'm afraid. Most change is fear-based, so you could almost just fill that one in all the time. I don't think it'll work. This has been working for me great for years, so I don't really know that flipping into the opposite is going to do anything. I don't really care about what other people are saying. I kind of drift away, so I don't think that's a good idea either. I'm just not a passive person. I have a really hard time sitting. It's just not my thing. So, but this is pretty honest, and it's not flattering at all, but this is what I have to deal with. This is what needs to change for me to change. And this is what you would be doing with your direct reports if you're managing people, as well as your organization. Maybe you don't like what your organization is selling or how you're doing it. You can do this on an organizational level as well. Then comes willingness. If you are not, on a scale of 8 out of 10, willing to change, drop it. Which is harsh. So if you take a direct report and they're talking too much and you want to flip them and you go, hey, scale of 1 to 10, how willing are you to change? About a 4. If you give me a pill or a supplement, I'll take it. Okay, let's just drop this. And now all of a sudden, they're like, ooh. Once you rip something off the table, they might want to come back and change and sort of realize, oh, I don't fit into the organization anymore. And it could scare them a little bit to being like, oh, okay, they're serious. They're not going to waste their time on me unless they're really willing to change. So that willingness might pop up. But this is even for yourself. If you're not really willing to change, you are wasting your time. And sometimes it requires some brutal honesty. When I first did this was when I was invited to be a skipper for MIT. Because they didn't have that many skippers. And I'm just so used to always going up the food chain. You do one thing, you just get better and better and better. Like I said, I'm a mediocre sailor. When I got the opportunity to be a skipper, the way skippers work is you don't sail. You're the manager. You don't do any work. You tell other people what to do. And so I really kind of had to dig into myself. All right, well, my ego wants to be the skipper. I'm going to tell people I'm a skipper. Okay, not right reasons. But truth be told, I don't like managing people. I don't like telling people what to do. I like to sail. I don't like to just sort of tell you what to do. I don't want to do this. And I need to say that. It's the first time I ever said I don't want to grow in something. I don't want to get better at something. To be honest, I don't even want to sail. I just want to be a guest on your boat. That's what I want. Seriously, I really just want to sit on a boat with sailing. And it required a lot of honesty to say, oh, wow, that's really different from how I was raised. I was raised to go more, better, grow. And if you're not, you're failing and going backwards. So there was a whole lot of like self-worth crap that went along with it. But it was the grow model where I said, I don't want to take the skipper exam. I really don't. I'm just not that into it. And so having that level of honesty can actually help you grow to say, you know what? You don't want to be a skipper. Go be a guest on someone else's boat. That's what you really want. It's okay. It's a hobby. It's the weekend. Be nice to yourself. So this can really help you, but you do start to get into some emotional stuff, again, emotional intelligence. So if you do this privately, no one has to see you, but this also gets into some childhood crap and all that. And vulnerability. Again, vulnerability. So the grow model can really be very helpful, but as a coach, it can be a bit touchy. This can really help you as an organization. So you can see that you can do SWOT your dice and grow for yourself. You can ask your friends to SWOT your dice and grow, so you get what other people are thinking about you. You can SWOT your dice and grow for your direct reports as well as for your organization. So I find that it ends up being a really good snapshot of what to do. Done. Did you raise your hand up? Oh, okay, cool. So this is just a little overview of it. And again, I've made these slides for you for training slides. So some of these slides are the same, they're just formatted differently. This is just a one-shotter. Some people have taken pictures of this with their phone, and then they have the phone out when they're talking to someone. And then it's, again, just different background. This is one of my favorite slides. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Geeky Guy before. Oh, cool. You have. Excellent. What do you think of it?
It's been about 5 years since I've had any interaction with it. It was one of my first professional experiences with that company, and we were working with clients overseas. And it was introduced by one of our clients to our team here in the States, and we had like a day-long learning session just about culture and interaction, and the balance between them and our team and their team, kind of learning to work together.
Beautiful. I teach this in our entrepreneurship and innovation class. When people want to do a startup, doing a startup requires a ton of energy. And most people do it because they want the money. And so I show the Geeky Guy. And basically, if you can do something that you love, that you're good at, and the world needs, not wants, but needs, and you get paid for it, you get Geeky Guy in the middle. You'll be thrilled. You're going to love what you do. However, if you're missing one or more of these circles, if you're missing more than one, drop it. You're just going to be miserable on some other level. But if you're baffled at what the problem is, imagine that you have a job, that you're paid a lot of money. Take a look at the bottom left and notice that this is your diagnosis if you don't love your job, but you're good at it, you're paid for it, and the world needs it. You are comfortable, but you feel empty. And that's how most people are. A lot of people go for money, and I really encourage people, especially if you're on the young end or you haven't started a business yet, if you're just going to do it for money and you get that money, God help you, because now you are a prisoner. You are locked with these handcuffs. And a lot of people do not like to go backwards financially. A lot of people don't want to give up the Porsche and the 5 houses and all this stuff and go do something that they love, which typically makes less money. So I encourage you, if you are going to do a startup or go into a job, if you can't reframe the love part, it's probably not going to work. Now, for example, let's say that you're missing the needs one. So if you take a look at the top left, see how that goes into that little darker green box? That's your diagnosis. If you're doing something that you love, you're good at it, and you get paid for it. So my cousin Robin, 2 Christmases ago, Robin's super rich. She married Mr. Universe, and she's an interior decorator for stars like Tom Cruise. So when Tom Cruise divorced Nicole Kidman, Robin, she decorated that house. And she has her Louis Vuitton overnight bag, and someone sends her a jet to New Jersey, and she goes to California and does it. And she's really good at it. She makes a ton of money. She has this beautiful home in New Jersey. Everything's great, except late at night, Christmas dinner. She's in her mid-40s now. And she's like, how you doing? I don't matter. What do you mean? I don't do anything that matters. Brown couch, blue couch, Tom Cruise, Kim Kardashian. I don't do anything that's important. Now that I'm getting older, what have I left behind for the world? Pretty houses. Well, it's because what she does, it's not needed. No one really needs that pretty house. But she's good at it, and she's paid for it, and she does enjoy it. But her diagnosis was satisfaction and a feeling of uselessness. And she's right. If she feels that she's useless, she is, because it's all about how you feel, not someone else. It's how you feel. So I encouraged her, because I got trained in coaching. I said, well, with decorating, what if you kept the love? You love decorating. You're still good at it. You're never going to leave that. There's always going to be someone who's going to pay you for it. But what if you decorated something that people needed? She's like, well, what do you mean? And I go, well, I have this food company, and one of our biggest customers is Dana-Farber Cancer Center. And they have these rock gardens and beautiful music, and you have pastel, and you have songs, everything. People are really kind to each other. What if you made beautiful environments for people that needed to calm down? Maybe hospice centers, or hospitals, or nurseries, funeral homes. What if there were places where people needed to feel better in an environment, and you could do that for them? What if when someone gets that, okay, you're going to hospice, this is the last place you're ever going to be, what if you made it really nice? Would you feel needed then, that someone's last days were beautiful and calm and comforting, and they felt loved and happy because of you? Would that make you feel good? And she's like, yeah. So now she actually does decorating for people that need these environments. Because her problem, she was pretty close. Her circle was people wanted what she had. They just didn't need it. So if you do what people want, maybe you could turn that over into a need. So you can play around with Geeky Guy, but if you're not satisfied with your job, or there's something that you're not satisfied with, if you take a look at the top 4, the 4 corners, that can be a diagnosis of what is going on for you. And for example, I had the opportunity when I was in China, my mom really missed me. And my dad said, oh, my friend Jim Jenkins, he's putting $500,000 at the bottom line with this education company. He basically trains people how to do underwater radar and sonar. It's kind of like light military stuff. He's probably going to die in 2 years. He's 72, super alcoholic, cirrhosis of the liver. Either old age or alcoholism is going to kill him. He needs to sell his business. And you're in the education business. And he doesn't do anything online. Nothing is global. You could probably do this whole global thing, like maybe teach sonar to the Japanese so they can protect themselves from North Korea, because you like this whole Asia. You're on this Asia jag right now. So he's trying to get me to buy the company. So I go down to Maryland, and 2 employees, self-directed, don't have to worry about that. They gross about $2 million a year. Net to me would be about $500,000. And I'm like, okay, I could turn this into online. I know how to do that. I could turn this into global with simultaneous translation and do it for Japan and Israel. Those are our 2 allies where we could teach them this stuff. So I was trying to reframe it into like the whole international thing. And then I was like, I don't like military stuff. I don't want to be a part of it. I certainly don't want to be a part of the aggression side. The defense side, it's just not my thing. I just don't get joy out of it. And even though I love the Japanese, and maybe I could help them with their defense stuff, I don't want to help the world that way. That's just not my thing. And I couldn't find the love button. All the other stuff I had, and sure, the $500,000 I would have been fine. But I realized the only reason I was considering this was to please my mother. She missed me. She thought I'll spend more time in Maryland, spend more time with her, and I felt guilty about saying no. And I had to really figure out, why am I even considering this? If my mother wasn't a part of this, I'd be like, I don't wear a radar, are you kidding me? It's boring. And I told these people this, because they were friends of my family. I said, I think I'm people-pleasing. I don't want this. And the wife was the one that understood, because women are more compassionate, more listeners, and she goes, I appreciate your honesty. The last 2 people we tried to sell this company to, they said yes for the money, they hated it from day one, 3 months into it, they quit. And they go, you have your third choice? Really? So yeah, if you're not going to find the love circle, and you may have to give up on the money, which is hard. But if you have a lot of money and you're miserable, you're just miserable. Yes?
Yeah, you make it seem so easy to do.
Yes?
How many times in your lifetime have you done that trap? Said, oh, I need to change some stuff.
I did it once.
Maybe you want to quit my job now.
I did it once because I actually didn't have the courage to do this. In 2008, I lost 90% of my net worth to Bernie Madoff. Ow. And all of a sudden, the lake that I bought, that was an hour north of Boston, my 5 houses and my 19 cars, gone. And then I was like, I don't want to do a money management firm again. I don't like how people treated me. They were really nice when I was making the money, and when I wasn't, they're talking lawsuits. And I just don't like to be involved with people in money. They get nasty. I don't want to do it. So I thought, you know, I've been really miserable with a bunch of money. What do I want to do now? And I started to ask a lot of people, like, what makes you satisfied? And someone said, giving is more satisfying than getting. And I thought, well, what can I give the world that they need and want? And I thought, wow, you know, I've had 6 companies. And I do like to talk a lot. So what if I tried teaching? And so really what I spent most of my time is teaching people how to do entrepreneurship, especially social entrepreneurship. And the big thing that I help people with is their fear. Most people are afraid to do it. They're afraid to quit their job. And I had to realize, okay, I was pretty miserable with a bunch of money. All I really need to do is live indoors, eat what I want. My only thing is I'm not extravagant. I just don't like to look at the price of things. I don't want to be like, oh, how much is that? If I want the notebook, I just get the notebook. But again, I'm not really extravagant. I don't want a yacht. But if I want to buy that coffee, I just want to buy the coffee and not be like, is it $3 or $4? And so that's how I became a teacher. And it wasn't because I had the courage. It's because I had my life ripped out from under me and I had to start over. And I thought, well, let's not make the same mistake twice. Because the money thing, that was what I was raised to do. That was a value that I was raised with in my society, but it didn't fit me personally. I don't need a lot of money. I need enough money, but I don't need a lot of money. And I don't want to be poor either. So I'm somewhere in the middle. Again, being honest, you know, I need some, but it is very hard to go backwards. But I will have to say, it is really nice having a simplified life. I used to own 5 houses at one time, and one winter, when I spent 9 months in Europe, guilty about leaving all 5 houses alone, I was robbed 19 times. I used to carry kidnap insurance. I had a nasty divorce, and I had 4 bodyguards for a year. Having a lot of money is really complicated, and now I rent this 1-bedroom apartment in Brookline. If the place burns to the ground, I don't really care. I got my laptop. It's all backed up. So there's a lot to be said about having a simpler life. Is it hard? It really is. But I won't go back. I really like having a simplified life. But it is very hard to go backwards, especially giving up money. It is. It's not easy.
Have you ever seen the movie Happy, the documentary? So I think it's on Netflix now, but they took all the research on happiness in the world, basically, and all the academic research broke down to between $0 and $50,000, you incrementally are happier.
Yeah.
You're dealing with basic needs. Between 50,000 and 50 million, people are no more happy. If they make $50,000 or 50 million, they're no more happy.
Yes, poverty will make you miserable, and you will go up. You basically want to have your basic needs met with a little bit of extra money left over. A little bit of savings, so I can afford an emergency, I can afford a vacation. After that, you're right, it plateaus. But I believe, and the research doesn't support this, that the higher up you go, your happiness drops because your life gets complicated. I was really disappointed that I lost almost all of my friends when I told them I was broke. Including my parents. I bought my parents a house, I bought a boat, I bought a car. When I said that Bernie Madoff ripped me off, don't stop drinking. That sucks. But my biggest disappointment with that entire experience was that I thought I was a really good judge of people, and I wasn't. I thought people wanted me for my friendship. They kind of wanted the account balance. The cool thing now is that if you're my friend now, the only thing I can give you is my friendship. That's it. And I don't buy people things anymore. I used to do that thinking I was being nice. People feel undervalued and controlled and weak when you start buying them stuff. I thought I was just being nice. They feel weak. It's really not a good idea to do that. So if your friend can't afford to go out to dinner, make dinner at your house. Just don't let them see a price tag. But that was one of the hard lessons that I learned. That was a difficult one. So let me just pop on, because we only have 10 minutes. Again, these are just basically things that I've learned over the years. Power hours. You can divide your day up into figuring out when you can do certain tasks more productively. I basically find, and this is a little bit weird, but since I haven't worked in years, like really, I have this very open schedule. I find that my most productive time is between 4 and 7 a.m. That's when I really think I can do like micro stuff, accounting, QuickBooks, and I basically get dumber throughout the day. It's 12 o'clock, it's starting. Oh, hang on. But basically what I've found is I split my tasks up based on when I'm most productive with the brain. So I don't go to yoga at 5 and 6 a.m. as often anymore, because that's my good brain time. I go around noon when I want a break. So you divide your day up into when you're most productive for that kind of thing. So anything micro minutia, emails, that's early morning. If I'm going to have lunch and do some negotiating, I'll do that in the afternoon. If I just want to play around and be creative, I'll do that at night. Also, if you don't put your phone into airplane mode, and you respond to every ding that comes in your phone, and I'm a total Pavlovian person, if it dings, I'm grabbing it, you are now working off someone else's schedule, not your own, and you're not in control. And now, it's hard to put on airplane mode, but now I feel like I'm going on vacation, and I like it. Also, the U.S. Army was trying to figure out what's the maximum productivity ratio, working for 52 minutes and then taking a break for 17. So I set my alarm. I can actually do a 12-hour workday. Put the alarm on 52 minutes of work on airplane mode. Once that 52 minutes hits, nothing electronic. I walk out of my office, and usually I clean the house or do laundry, take the cat. Walk outside. But I do not do anything like, oh, I'll just check my emails on my break. You don't do that. It's true restoration. If you want to take a 17-minute nap, drink a cup of coffee, go to sleep. In 20 minutes, the caffeine will kick in, and then you'll be ready after your 20-minute nap. So these are some of my time management hacks. Also, this is a spreadsheet. This is actually real. It's a screenshot. I use Excel. It's really a Google Doc, so it's on my phone as well as on my laptop. But what I do is that I basically divide into column A what brings me money. So these are all my income-producing ventures. So there's 7 of them. And so there you are on line number 9, E5000. So column B is the time that I'm going to be doing something. So you see, when I'm going to do things during my break, if I have a scheduled time, I put in the time. If I decide I'm going to do it during the day. So this was probably on a Tuesday, because I said on Wednesday I want to do this residency lecture. Column C is the event. Red means you got to do it now, today. Black means later. So I don't even look at black, I just look at the red. Once I've done something, it goes into column D. So see how the italics, like scheduled China workshops? If it's in italics, it means that I'm done and I'm waiting on someone else. So like 921, Mad Education, that's my job in China. On 921, I signed my contract. I'm waiting for them to send it back. So I don't have to look at that thing until maybe, I don't know, 9:30. And then I say, hey, where's my contract? I had a week to sign that. So I can get it out of my head. Anything else that's not in italics is just waiting to move over to the next column. So this is a combination of some other time management programs. This is also part of the Eisenhower method. But I have found for me, this just happens to work the best. And you're welcome to hack this thing around, but I find that having a dashboard or just having one quick shot of what we're looking at is incredibly helpful. And in our 8 minutes, I'm going to pop through some other stuff. This is basically on how you do sales. People will buy on emotions and they justify with facts. So again, we have this pitch. We make computers, beautifully designed, want to buy one. This is Apple's pitch. Okay. There's no emotion here. So imagine if you started with a belief statement. This is your why. You believe in challenging the status quo and doing things differently. Try to get some inspiration. So again, I'll zip through these, but this is the difference between pitch A and pitch B. And this is also, there's a TED Talk you can get on YouTube. It's Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. You just Google Golden Circle. But these slides are going to show you how you can do this for your organization or for yourself. So most people just talk about what they do and how they do it. Now look at this bullseye as if it's a brain. So we have the middle of the brain, the outer side of the brain. This pitch is going from the outside of the brain to the inside of the brain, which is neocortex into emotions. And the one that people typically like better, that's how you spell Simon Sinek's name. You start with the middle of the brain, why you do what you do, how you do it, and then what you do. You know, this is going to allow you to make your own personal statement of why you're doing what you're doing with your life, or why you're taking this class, or why you have this job, why you have this career, why your direct reports are doing this. Ask your direct reports to do their why. Most people don't know why they're doing what they're doing. Most people are kind of on autopilot. Why are you doing this? I don't know. Could we dive in on that? A lot of people don't really know with great clarity why they're doing what they do. However, and again, these slides are for you for training purposes, this is the most important part. The limbic system is where we have trust and decision making. People buy on emotions and they justify with facts. So your pitch to people and your pitch to yourself should start with the limbic system of the brain, the emotional side. So for example, let's say I want to try to sell a car to Adam. Well, I could say, Adam, we sell Porsches. We've got some really great financing for the next 30 days, and we have a full inventory. Okay, that's all fact justifying. You two are married, right? Yeah. So what if I go, 911, you look like a 911. Adam, I could totally see you behind the wheel of a 911. It fits you, man. The only question is color. You know, by the way, we go 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. Financing for the next 30 days, 0% APR. What do you think? So I hit him on, yeah, I want the car. And then he goes home to Krista, and he's like, well, you know they're going to finance it for the next 30 days at full inventory. So you buy on the emotion, I just want it. But then I justify to either myself or other people using facts. But this is how you pitch people. It's also how you come up with what you do for a living. So you can make a corporate pitch. If you go to your salespeople and ask them to do this, they're going to come up with something different, which is going to be like, whoa, why is our culture like all over the place? So this allows you to do group exercises, and this is how you would do it with people. Again, you start with the emotions and justify with facts. And you start with Geeky Guy, so you actually ask these questions, you know, what are you good at? Where do you add the greatest value, which is your need statement? What do you love? What do you get paid for? And then you're going to answer question 2 and 3. Why is the hard one? This is where things get a little fuzzy. Women are going to be better at this than men. So they could actually be guides with this. What do you believe in? What's your noble cause? What's your big vision? Why are you on the earth? If you were going to die today, what did you do? What was your accomplishment? And so this is what you're looking to do. So like my why is over here on the right. That I believe when we put our fears and self-limiting beliefs aside, we can learn to do anything we want. Because if you remember, this is true for me. I had a debilitating anxiety and depression problem when I retired. And it really held me back. And I thought, wow, I really am my own worst enemy. And if I could unlock that fear in people to start their own business, which I found to be the most amazing experience ever. When I have felt truly alive is when I had my own business. It was my child. It was my form of childbirth. I had this thing, and I could watch it grow, and I could change it, and I could help the world influence people with it. It was amazing. And if I could give that experience to other people, I could show you true joy, but not if fear is in your way. So this is my belief statement of why I'm a teacher, because I do think that people have their own obstacles, and I think it stops them from getting joy. So that actually is my why. And it can take you like 30 to 60 minutes to figure this out. So this is actually a time-consuming exercise. But I would encourage you after the residency to figure out what is your why. And then you just put it together. So here's mine. So I believe we put our fears together aside. I explain complex things simply. I'm a teacher. I don't take a class. So I want to inspire you first emotionally, and then get into what I actually do factually. And again, these are training slides for yourself and for your direct reports. So in the last 2 minutes, so this is how you would actually do it with people. And then I would ask you to share it with them. So now I have extra slides that would take probably another half an hour to go through. So you can have those. I'm going to give people a choice before we break for lunch in 2 minutes. November 1st is going to be another lecture that I do online. So we can take an informal vote now. You can either do more emotional intelligence, or we can do blockchain. So raise your hand if you'd like to have more emotional intelligence for your November 1 lecture. Okay, a couple hands. Hands down. And raise your hand if you'd like a 2-hour lecture on blockchain. Looks like blockchain's winning by maybe like 60-40. So what I'll do, I'll send out a survey monkey, and we'll go from there. If people do want to have the rest of this lecture on emotional intelligence, then I can just do a webinar on it separately. And it'll be probably about a half an hour. So we have lunch now for what, hour and a half? Hour and a half. Hour and a half. So see you in an hour and a half. One of my best recommendations close to here are the food trucks that are at the Science Center. So you're going to walk out of here, go back to the street, which is going to be towards your left, take a right, walk straight, and you're just going to walk into the food trucks. Banh mi with the light blue truck is really good Vietnamese food. It's for healthy. Yes?
Will this going to be secured to the electronics, or should it be
Is Melania going to stay? We normally say yes, but I'm a worrywart. I would take stuff. That would make you feel good.
20% chance, though.
You're right. Do what makes you feel good.
This is where risk control comes in handy. You decide what is high risk, what is medium risk, what is low risk. And that sounds like pretty high risk. Like, for example, when I say 30% of the time what I fear comes true, maybe like that 30%, 29% is comprised of that is I'm worried, I'm going to get it. And I have to take both the New Jersey Transit and the New York City subway. So half the time it's going to come into being. One versus South New York. That's how you for sure. I drive a Ford Taurus for 200,000 miles on here.